Good day, everyone, and welcome back to our Moment to Moment channel, Spirituality with Pafam Kulu and our Spiritual Collective, here to Babam Kulu Sanctuary. We want to thank you for all your participation on this channel thus far, and we're asking you to please continue to like the channel. You see there's a button there to press like. We encourage you to share the channel so that others know about the knowledge that we're sharing. By all means, subscribe to the channel so that you become a part of this community that we're creating. And last but not least, we look forward to your comments so that we can enter into discourse as we move through. So now this is another part of the series on your doctoral journey as a spiritual journey. Now, mind you, it's not just for doctoral students, master students can also grow from this. And when we're talking about master study or doctoral study, you can also analogize that to your particular profession as well. So, today we're going to specifically talk about your heart on the one hand, and that means your spiritual heart as well as your physical heart. And then we'll also be talking about your research problem. So we're going to be comparing and contrasting the heart and your research problem. Now, you're going to see me with this club because where I'm taping, you see the sun is behind me and it's kind of hot. So I'm making myself at home and just understand, I am going to be trying to get rid of the perspiration. So now, the last time I gave an overview of the doctoral journey as a spiritual journey, and I talked about all the different components, or most of them anyway. And I mentioned the heart and the research problem, but that video seemed to keep taking a life of its own, and I didn't really get into detail the way that I will today. Stay with us. Now, this is going to be a part one and a part two for this particular episode of the series. And in addition to that, at the end of the second episode, we're going to give you exercises to do in order to understand how to intersect your heart, particularly your spiritual heart, and your research problem, so a more optimum completion of the study. So as you're developing, your study is developing. As your study is developing, you are developing spiritually. We're going to be talking about how to sometimes we need to set the ego aside and the mind aside, even though they're very much involved in your study. But in order for your spiritual self to come forth and to evolve, we're going to have to set the ego and the mind aside. So now I'm going to talk about different, let's call these themes, of how the heart and the research problem can be interconnected for more optimum development of your study. So now we're going to look at how both the heart and the research problem are core or centered. The heart is the center of your body. The heart is the center of your body when it comes to the spiritual aspect as well as the physical aspect. And the research problem is the center of your study. We're going to talk about the roles of the heart in your physical and spiritual self, and the role of the research problem in your study, and how those two go together or not. We're going to talk about the functions that the physical heart plays in the operation of the body, and the function that the research problem plays in the operation of the study. We'll also be discussing guidance. Now, what I mean by guidance is that how is it that your heart provides spiritual guidance, and then how is it that your research problem provides guidance for your study. So those are going to be the elements that we talk about in part one. In part two, we're going to be talking about brokenness. Now, everybody at some point or another goes through what we can call a broken heart. And what does that mean spiritually when you have a broken heart? And next to that, or juxtaposed to that, we're going to look at what it means when you have a broken research problem. What is that going to do or not do for your study? I mean, even after you send it out for examination and it comes back and examiners are telling you there's an issue with the research problem, it means it's a broken research problem. So, what do we do about the broken research problem? Then we're going to, in part two, go into the mending of your spiritual heart when there's brokenheartedness, and the mending of your research problem when you have a broken research problem that's not properly guiding the study and performing its role and function and guidance as it should in the study. Also, in episode two, we're going to be talking about the synthesis of how your heart synthesizes your state of being, your spiritual heart, and your physical heart, and then how your research problem synthesizes the state of being of your study. And then lastly, the newness of your heart, the role that the heart plays in regeneration of your system physically and spiritually, and then the new knowledge that would come out from this research problem. So I just gave you a capsule now of, episode 1, episode 2, and right now we're going to delve into episode 1. Then you can check the other links in order to delve into episode 2. So now, the role of your heart. Now, the heart physically triggers the pumping of blood. It's the leader in the circulatory system. Your arteries also participate, your blood vessels all participate in the operation of your heart. So every time your heart beats, this blood is being pumped throughout in order to clean your organs. And there's an interconnection between the oxygen that we breathe in and when we exhale, the carbon monoxide that we release. So these are all parts of the functions of the heart, the roles and the functions. Now let's look at the roles and the functions of the research problem in your study. One of the roles of the research problem in your study is to trigger decision making on how the study will be put together. How will it come together? So it's your research problem that's going to lead you into every single component of the research proposal. That means, of course, the research problem itself, but then it's going to direct you into how it plays a role when you make decisions about your research questions and objectives, when you make decisions about your research methodology, when you make decisions about your conceptual or theoretical framework. It's making decisions early on about the type of literature that you're going to be reviewing. And each one of these components that I'm talking about, there's a different episode for each one. So I won't go into it very deeply here, but I'm just trying to signal here the importance of the research problem, its role in being the heart of the study. In other words, just like the heart, by the pumping of the blood, creates a flow within your physical system, so does the research problem create a lifeline flow within the study. The function of the heart in your body, I just talked about that a little bit already, about the oxygen that's coming in when you inhale, and then when you exhale, the carbon monoxide that you're giving off. That fortunately the trees and the grass and the bushes can all benefit from your carbon monoxide that you're exhaling, just like when you inhale, and the oxygen is benefiting all the elements of your internal system. That's important because we always want to focus on how we're one with nature and how we work with nature, which is another reason that I'm doing this outside today, so we have nature all around us. Now, when it comes to the function of the research problem, now it helps you come up with what the gaps are in the literature. First of all, now, this research problem is coming from the literature. Let's not forget that. Let's not get confused about that. You don't just sit and write up a research problem. You must first go to the literature, assess the literature, select and discern what parts of the literature are going to be important, but also what has not been studied. And this is how we determine the gaps of in the literature. Now, what literature to include, what literature to eliminate, your research problem is telling you that. Which research methodology to use or not use, again, your research problem is telling you that. That's its function. And it helps you get rid of the irrelevant literature, just like your heart, through its pumping, helps you exhale the carbon monoxide as a matter of cleaning the waste from your system. So the heart is cleaning the waste from your system, and the research problem is helping you clean out the irrelevant literature that doesn't really belong in your study. Now let's look at the guidance. The guidance that the heart provides when it comes to your spiritual self, particularly, and then also the guidance that your research provides. We've all heard sayings such as, Kosi, well, it's good to know they're here. Spiritually, the heart is about compassion, love, fullness of energy, and how you bring that to bear. So let me say that again. Spiritually, the heart is about compassion, love, and the energy, the full sense of the energy that you bring to bear. That's why we say that, it's our heart that causes us to fall in love. Or it's our heart that makes us have certain desires, that makes us have certain longings. We're longing for something on account of it's in our heart to receive whatever that is. And we also talk about following our heart, listening to our heart. Just as we listen to our gut, our solar plexus, the heart plays a very important part of that. We talk about speaking from our heart. Makosi. That we're making a statement that's coming not just from us in a mental sense or in an egotistic sense, but it's coming from us in a spiritual sense. We're speaking from our heart. This is what we really mean. This is the point that we're trying to convey, because it's so special, it's so significant to us, because it's coming from our heart. Or knowing the truth through our heart. There's something about feeling it in our heart when we know something is true, or when we're saying, nah, that I don't believe that. Keeping in mind that truth is not absolute. There can be many truths. So the heart is providing a guidance in terms of listening to our heart, feeling our heart, following our heart, speaking from our heart, and knowing the truth from your heart. Now, even though you might hear someone say something and in your heart you can say, that's not true. But when it's your turn, and when you're articulating certain points on a spiritual level in terms of your own spiritual evolution and how that's coming about or not coming about, are you speaking from your heart? Or are you speaking from your mind? Or are you speaking from your ego? Where is this coming from? So that's what we mean about tuning into your spiritual heart in order for you to follow your heart and speak the truth from your heart. Now, it's the very same thing with the research problem and the guidance that it provides in the study. Just like your heart is providing that guidance spiritually that I just spoke about, so it is that we have to have our research problem in such a way that we can listen to our research problem, that we can follow our research problem, that we can know the truth from our research problem, that we can speak from that element of our research problem, because you've identified the gaps of the literature, and the research problem can deliver that gap because it is the one that's going to be guiding the study. When we speak to our research problem, we want to speak to our research problem with all our heart, so that our research problem can then in turn speak to us and allow us to bring to bear the fullness of what needs to be addressed in this research problem. What are the issues? What are the problems? What's going on in society? How is that historicized? How are we confirming that different types of knowledge systems are brought to bear? That your research problem is just not coming up with an articulation in a westernized way of knowing of what a research problem is. How are you articulating your research problem and letting it guide you in terms of African epistemologies? Because if it's not in that research problem, that yearning, that longing for African ways of knowing or indigenous ways of knowing, then the research problem is not going to be able to guide you into new knowledge. It's not going to be able to take you beyond the predominant systems, and it's going to prevent you from bringing out those aspects that have been marginalized for too long, that we want to be able to get the research problem to talk to that in a way that when we address the research problem, we're going to bring in new knowledge that is meaningful, new knowledge that is going to bring change, not just to us here in South Africa or whatever country you might be joining us from, but in a regional aspect. What about in a continental aspect, in a global aspect? Because the societal problems that exist today are more global in nature, more regional in nature. We move beyond the whole nation state aspect and the Westphalian state. So all of this must be embedded into the way that you're articulating your research problem in order that it will be able to guide you. Because the research problem is the heart of your study, just as your physical and spiritual heart are the heart of your ways of being, your ways of knowing, your ways of developing. So now I'm closing out here, and I just want to once again encourage you to stay with us for episode 2, where we will be discussing the other elements that I mentioned, such as the brokenness heart, the broken heart, the mending of the heart, the synthesis of the heart, the newness of the heart. In the same vein, the brokenness of the research problem, the mending of the research problem, the synthesis of the research problem throughout the study, and also the new knowledge that the research problem is designed. And as I shut off, I just want to say, be sure to like the channel, subscribe to the channel, share the channel, whether someone is undertaking a study or not, and comment on the channel. Thanks again for enjoying us and joining us. All the best to everyone.